At precisely 10:30 in the evening on January 31, 2018, a team of Mossad operatives breached a fortified warehouse in the heart of Tehran. 6 hours and 29 minutes later, they vanished, taking with them Iran's most explosive secret. But how did they get inside a facility monitored by the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, crack safes designed to be impregnable, and smuggle half a ton of intelligence out of an enemy nation? This is the story of an impossible heist. The target was not a person. It was a memory. The collected physical proof of Iran's nuclear ambitions. A program codenamed Project Ahmad. Officially, the world was told this project had been shuttered back in 2003. The International Atomic Energy Agency had been assured. Western powers had signed a historic nuclear deal, based, in part, on this assumption. This was a lie. The Ahmad archive was the evidence. It was 55,000 pages of documents, 163 compact discs filled with designs, simulations, and test data. Blueprints for a nuclear warhead designed to fit on a Shahab-3 missile. It was the complete operational history of a clandestine weapons program that never truly died. And it was all stored in one place. An unassuming commercial warehouse in the Shohrabad district of southern Tehran. A location so bland, so utterly forgettable. It was the perfect hiding place. For over a decade, Iran had been playing a shell game with international inspectors, moving this archive from location to location. But in 2016, Israeli intelligence got a lock. A human asset, a source deep within the Iranian establishment, confirmed the archive had found its final resting place. The clock started ticking. The mission was greenlit by Mossad director Yossi Cohen. The objective was absolute. Acquire the archive. All of it. Not copies, not digital files. The physical source material itself. Failure was not an option. Capture meant certain death and a geopolitical crisis that could ignite the entire Middle East. The planning was meticulous. It took 2 full years. A team of case officers began monitoring the warehouse in early 2016. They weren't soldiers. They were observers. Ghosts. They documented everything. Guard patrol routes, shift changes, the type of locks on the doors, the model numbers of the alarms and CCTV cameras. They learned the rhythm of the street, the hum of the city, the patterns of life and work that surrounded Iran's most sensitive secret. They discovered the facility was staffed during the day by what appeared to be civilian workers, but at night it was empty. The guards didn't enter the building. They merely patrolled the perimeter. The real security was electronic and physical. 32 massive safes, reinforced steel doors, a state-of-the-art alarm system, wired directly to a nearby IRGC barracks. It was a fortress. This is where the second team came in. The specialists. They were not stationed in Iran. They were flown in just for the operation. A collection of expert safecrackers, electronics specialists, and drivers, all operating under flawless, non-Israeli cover identities. They entered the country as tourists, as businessmen, as ghosts blending into the fabric of a city of nearly 9 million people. The entire operation hinged on a single, critical window of opportunity. The night of January 31st. It fell between 2 significant Iranian holidays, a period where security posture was expected to be slightly more relaxed. The window for the operation was razor thin, from 10:30 p.m., when the last daytime worker clocked out, to 5 a.m., when the first morning shift was scheduled to arrive. 6.5 hours. But here is the critical rehook that changes our understanding of the entire operation. Israeli intelligence knew from their assets that the IRGC's counterintelligence division, Unit 113, had become aware of a significant Mossad presence in Tehran. They didn't know the target, but they knew something was coming. They had tightened security across the city. So how did a team of over 20 operatives, carrying highly specialized and illegal equipment, move through a city on high alert to strike the one target that mattered most? The answer lies in deception and audacity. The Mossad team didn't try to hide. They hid in plain sight. On the day of the operation, multiple small, seemingly unrelated incidents were triggered across Tehran. A minor traffic accident here, a small electrical fire there. False intelligence tips were fed to local police, reporting suspicious activity in districts far from Shohrabad. Each incident was a piece of static, a minor annoyance designed to draw the attention of security forces, to pull their focus, even for a moment, away from the real target. It was a city-wide sleight of hand. At 10 p.m., the team, disguised as local workmen, moved out in a convoy of trucks. They approached the warehouse. The perimeter guards were at the far end of their patrol route, exactly as planned. The first operative, the electronics specialist, approached the main junction box for the building's alarm system. He didn't cut the wires that would have triggered a dead man's switch. Instead, He used a custom-built device to clone the all-clear signal, looping it back to the security station. To the IRGC, the entire system appeared to be functioning perfectly. They were inside the perimeter. Time check. 10:37 p.m. The next obstacle. The main warehouse doors. They were hardened steel. Breaching them with explosives was too loud, too risky. Instead, the team brought a plasma torch, a tool capable of generating temperatures exceeding 20,000 degrees Celsius. They didn't cut the lock. They cut the door itself, slicing a perfectly measured rectangle out of the steel, just large enough for a person to slip through. The metal slag dripped silently onto a heat-resistant mat. Time check. 11:52 p.m. They were inside the main chamber. Before them stood the prize. 32 monolithic, black steel safes. Intelligence had indicated the key nuclear files were in a specific few, but they had to be certain. They had to open them all. This was the point of no return. Their torches were specialized high-temperature lances, designed to burn through industrial-grade steel and concrete. But they were also loud. The sound inside the warehouse would be deafening. The team had calculated that the building's insulation would muffle the noise, but it was a calculated risk. One curious passerby, one alert guard, and the mission was over. The order was given. The torches ignited with a piercing shriek. The operatives, shielded by heat-proof blankets, descended on the safes. It wasn't a delicate process of listening to tumblers click. It was brutal. High-speed industrial surgery. They burned through the first safe, then the second, then the fifth. Binders, folders, and black CD cases were pulled from the shelves and thrown into pre-labeled bags. The intelligence had been precise. The documents were exactly where the source said they would be. The sheer volume, however, was staggering, far more than their initial estimates. The half-ton of material was now a race against physics and time. The trucks could only hold so much, and the clock was ticking relentlessly towards the 5 a.m. deadline. Then, a problem. One of the largest safes, number 17, refused to yield. The alloy was different. Reinforced with a composite material, their torches struggled to penetrate. Precious minutes burned away as sparks flew to no effect. Every second wasted was a second closer to discovery. The leader of the breaching team makes a call. They can't open it. They have to leave it behind. But what if safe number 17 holds the one file that matters most? The one piece of the puzzle that proves Iran's ultimate intention? The command comes back from headquarters in Tel Aviv. A single, cold directive. Open it, or bring the whole safe with you. Bringing the whole safe with you. That wasn't a suggestion. It was an order. The audacity was breathtaking. Stealing half a ton of documents was one thing. Stealing a multi-ton reinforced steel safe from a high-security IRGC facility was an act of pure, unadulterated defiance. There was no time to argue. The breaching team retasked. They leveraged crowbars into the floor mounts, the screech of protesting steel echoing through the warehouse. Each sound was a gamble. With a final, groaning tear of metal, the safe was free. Time check. 3:14 a.m. They had less than 90 minutes to get this behemoth onto a truck and disappear into the pre-dawn quiet of Tehran. As they struggled to pivot the immense weight toward the opening they had cut, one of the operatives, running a gloved hand along the base to get a better grip, froze. His fingers had brushed against something, a slight indentation, no bigger than a coin, covered in a thin layer of dust. It was almost perfectly flush with the steel casing. He wiped it clean. It wasn't part of the safe. It was a small, circular plate, expertly fitted and painted to match the surrounding metal. And this is where the entire mission pivots from a heist into a deadly trap. This is the rehook. The IRGC's counterintelligence, Unit 113, hadn't just been on high alert. They had been waiting. They knew an asset had been compromised. They knew something in that archive was a target. So they played their own game of deception. But what if the reinforced safe wasn't just better security? What if it was bait? The operative signaled the team leader. The electronics specialist was summoned. He ran a small, handheld detector over the plate. The device beeped once. A low, ominous tone. It was a tracker, but it was dormant. Likely a geofence device, programmed to activate the moment it left the immediate vicinity of the warehouse. Stealing the safe wouldn't just be difficult. It would be a rolling betrayal, broadcasting their exact location to every IRGC unit in the province. They had walked right into it. Every calculation, every minute of planning, had just been rendered obsolete. The escape routes, the safe houses, the extraction plan, all of it was compromised. Tel Aviv's order to bring the whole safe had unknowingly sprung the enemy's trap. Now, trapped deep inside the target, with the clock bleeding away, they were faced with an impossible choice. Leave the safe, and potentially the most critical intelligence, behind? Or take it, and lead the enemy directly to them? How do you win a game when your opponent set the board? The team leader made a decision, a new plan, improvised in seconds, born of desperation and sheer nerve. He signaled 2 of his men. They wouldn't leave the safe, and they wouldn't take it with them. Not on their primary escape route. They were going to perform surgery. Right here, right now. He pointed to the plasma torch and then to the hinges of the safe door. Forget the front. They were going to cut the entire door off its moorings. It was a gamble on metallurgy. They were betting the hinges were a different, softer steel than the face. A long shot, but their only shot. Sparks showered the concrete floor, but the real problem wasn't the tracker they found. It was the one they didn't. Because this entire archive wasn't a prize. It was bait. The IRGC hadn't just been waiting. They had been watching every single move. The rehook they discovered on the safe was a deliberate misdirection, a piece of theatrical stagecraft designed to make the Mossad team think they had outsmarted their enemy. The real trap was far more insidious. It wasn't a geofence tracker. It was an audio bug, no larger than a grain of rice, planted months ago not on the safe, but inside the main circuit breaker they had so expertly disabled upon entry. The moment they cut the power, it switched to its own microbattery and began transmitting everything. Every whispered word, every screech of metal, every strategic decision. The Iranians didn't need to track where the safe was going. They knew the Mossad team was still inside. They were simply letting the clock run out, tightening the noose with chilling patience. The 5 a.m. deadline wasn't for the Mossad team to escape by. It was the time the IRGC assault teams were scheduled to storm the building. The Mossad wasn't racing against the sunrise. They were racing towards a firing squad. But paranoia is a survival trait. The electronics specialist, Erez, couldn't shake a feeling of profound wrongness. The rehook tracker was too simple, too obvious. He powered on his broad-spectrum scanner one last time, not aiming it at the safe, but sweeping the entire warehouse. His blood ran cold. The bug wasn't on the bait. It was on the cage itself. He slowly looked up, his eyes meeting the team leaders through the shower of sparks. Erez didn't say a word. He just subtly tilted his head towards the breaker box. In that single, silent exchange, the entire truth of their situation crashed down. They weren't thieves about to be hunted. They were performers on a stage, with a fatal final act scheduled for 5 a.m. Almost there. Get that last hinge. As soon as it's open, we grab the documents and exfil through the north tunnel. Extraction is waiting. He was now speaking directly to the IRGC commander listening in. But as the leader spoke, his hands were moving, signing a completely different set of orders to his team. It was Plan Zeta. Asset denial. Total egress. Forget the intel. Survive the night. One moves to their gear, pulling out a small, circular thermobaric charge. The other pries up a heavy iron grate in the floor, revealing the dark, putrid depths of Tehran's storm drain system. The mission had failed the moment they cut the power. The new mission was to make sure the enemy failed too. He was no longer trying to win the game. He was trying to shatter the board into a million pieces. One by one, the team members slipped like ghosts through the grate into the darkness below, their movements economical and silent. The team leader is the last one remaining. He gives the operative at the hinge a final nod. They both abandon their posts. Above, the roar of the plasma torch dies, replaced by an unnerving silence. In the control room, the IRGC commander frowns. The silence is wrong. There is no grand explosion. Instead, a blinding white flash is followed by a deep, resonant whoomp. The air itself seems to catch fire as the charge burns at over 4,000 degrees, instantly turning the steel door cherry red and incinerating everything inside into sterile ash. The IRGC didn't get their men, and they didn't get their secrets back. They got nothing but the echo of their own failed trap. This is the nature of the Shadow War, a game played with misdirection, technology, and human nerve, where victory isn't about what you gain, but about what you deny your enemy. The rehook was never just one trap. It was a layer in a dozen. A reminder that the most dangerous threat is the one you haven't seen yet. To understand the moves and countermoves that define modern conflict, to see the intricate strategies behind the headlines, subscribe to Breaking_the_Front.